I'm Teresa Harding, and this is the Teresa Harding Podcast. This podcast is for people who know that this industry is not about the network marketer anymore. It's about the people we serve and the change we can make in other people's lives. It's about the entrepreneur inside of each of us who's trying to find our voice. It's for the people who want to change the world and are looking for the most powerful way to make that happen. So, why don't people take action? The first one is what I call the pleasure pain principle. I want to spend just a little bit of time on this because there are several pieces and points that I want to make. There are 6, in fact. The first one is that there are only 2 reasons that people take action ever for anything. One reason is because they are moving toward pleasure. And the second reason is they are moving away from pain. Those are the only 2 reasons. But human nature is such that this is number 2 about this principle, and that is this: people will do more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. Human nature is such that it's way more compelling to stay away from pain than it is to go toward pleasure. The third thing I want to tell you about this is that perception of the pain or the pleasure is stronger than reality. The reality of how painful it will be is actually what you think it's going to be, how painful you think it's going to be, is way worse usually than what it actually ends up being. So because we are worried about that and we kind of hype it up in our minds, then what happens is that stops us from taking action. The fourth thing I want to tell you about the pleasure pain principle is that perception of pain and pleasure is modulated by time. What that means is that it's like the strength of that, the strength of how much that feels changes over time. It might lessen, it might strengthen. So for example, people who are afraid to interact with other human beings, maybe they have social phobias. Well, if they keep allowing themselves to not, and no judgment here, I'm just saying, if they keep not taking action and don't interact, it can slowly strengthen the perception of pain they will feel by interacting with people, and it can turn into agoraphobia where they don't even want to go outside their house. So that's what I mean when I say it's modulated. The strength of that pain or pleasure changes over time based on your perception. Okay. Number 5, emotion trumps logic every time. Every time. If you think that you make decisions based on logic, I want you to think again, because what happens is 99% of the time, we make decisions based on emotion, and then we justify the decision with logic. It might be logical. When you go get your green car that doesn't use gasoline, you might be telling yourself logically, it's because I want to be good to the planet. And that's true. You want to be good to the planet. And all the reasons you tell yourself all are true. They're logical. But one of the reasons you're getting that car is because you think being green is cool and you want to be cool. You want to be the person that is a green person. There are so many other factors. People who go buy a Tesla, they don't go buy a Tesla because it saves on gas. Yeah, that might be one of the reasons, but there are a lot of cars that save on gas. There are a lot of cars that are green. There are a lot of different cars they can buy. But what happens? They go buy the car and they're thinking, man, I'm going to look like James Bond in this car. I'm going to look so cool. It's going to be awesome. And then when they come home and their spouse asks them, so, oh my goodness, you bought this Tesla. What are you going to say? Yes, it is amazing. It's going to save us so much money on gas. And look how fast it goes. Look at how we can, be green and save the planet. You're going to say all the logical reasons why you bought it, when really part of why you bought it was the emotion. Think about the decisions that you make, even the ones that you think that you make logically. Because sometimes, in fact, I have a very logical husband. He is extremely brilliant, super logical. Even when you make decisions that are based on logic, sometimes it's because, for example, he admires logic. He thinks it's wise to make decisions based on logic. So in his emotions, he wants to be that kind of person, and he wants to be wise, and he thinks that is a smart thing to do, and he wants to be smart. So he makes decisions based on logic. And if you don't believe me, then you're going to have trouble increasing your sales, because let me tell you, The copy that you write, like we talked about in the previous video, it will need to be touching their emotions.